This is the way the world ends, not with a bang, but with a whimper. Boris Johnson's stranglehold on British politics is over. An administration built entirely upon lies and the bogus charisma of one of the single most fraudulent individuals ever to inhabit public life in Britain has come to an inevitable and inglorious end. Even sooner, perhaps, than some of us expected or predicted, but no less spectacular than would have always been the case. Because democracy and decency are twins. You can't have one without the other, and you can't have democracy when there is no decency in Downing Street. And there hasn't been any decency in Downing Street since 2019. I spent yesterday's programme looking at the resignations of Sajid Javid and Rishi Sunak, and I think in retrospect we were far too kind to them, particularly perhaps to Sajid Javid. The idea that these men and now women have suddenly discovered a taste for decency, a respect for democracy, a reverence for integrity is absolutely outrageous. To have sat there silently while this man rode roughshod over all of our most valued conventions, traditions, standards, while he once again thought it was churlish of us to expect him to abide by the network of obligation that binds us all, is actually breathtaking in its audacity. How bloody dare they? How dare they talk today about the importance of honesty, the relevance of integrity, the necessity of decency? How dare these nodding dogs and political pygmies posture in a way that casts them as having somehow exercised moral judgment after facilitating, championing and cheerleading a singularly disgraceful and despicable episode in British political history. If you are expecting a celebration on this programme today, then I'm sorry. I was too. And yet, as the dust has settled around this complete carnage, I find myself dispirited, dismayed and angry. There's relief. Of course there's relief. The house is no longer on fire. The arsonist is being driven away in the back of a police van. But the damage that's been done to the country that we love while these people have tried to cast themselves as patriots, the damage is incalculable and cannot be repaired for generations. Everything is broken. Everything is broken. Broken by the vanity of one man and the cultish dedication to his promotion practiced everywhere from the office of the owner of the Daily Mail right down to the silliest, most deluded voter in the country. It is incredible. Why relief? Because it could have been worse. Yesterday, there were moments when you wondered what the British equivalent of January the 6th would look like. The utter refusal of a man so high on his own self-importance and delusional vanity that he would contemplate anything in protection of his own position. Where would he go next? And thankfully, and I don't think it's something we could take for granted, thankfully, somehow the Conservative Party found not just the means, but the will to slam the brakes upon his ego trip. But there were moments yesterday when I wondered, and you do wonder, of course, how many times have we wondered together over the last few years whether we were the ones that were going mad. But to hear one of Johnson's former bagmen, Will Walden, on at the end of Tom Swarbrick's programme there, talking about how even he feared that we were close to seeing a dismantling of democratic norms. That's how bad it was. Because they would have still cheered. Do you know what the front page of the Daily Mail is today? The owner of the Daily Mail took a decision not long ago to get rid of an editor called Geordie Gregg, who had somehow managed to begin the detoxification of the single most diabolical influence on public life that this country has ever seen. And somehow that editor was managing to turn things around. But the owner took a decision that they were going to go all in on backing Boris Johnson, they were going to bet the house on supporting Boris Johnson, and they were going to get rid of a man who could have changed the face of the British media in a way that is sorely and desperately needed. But they didn't. Do you know what their front page is today? Hold on to your hats. This is supposedly the finest minds on Fleet Street, the best political judgment in our profession. And their front page today, Boris stares down the mutiny. And then page after page after page of praise and paeans to the most corrupt man ever to hold public office in this country. Attacks upon the people that have brought him down, culminating, and you won't believe this, but I've tweeted a picture just to prove it, culminating in a headline that seeks to blame so-called Remainers for Boris Johnson's self-inflicted catastrophe. Crowing Remainiacs is a headline in the Daily Mail today. One of their writers, PMs should be ousted by the people, not a bunch of TV pundits and bureaucrats deranged by Brexit hatred. This was written after the Chancellor of the Exchequer had resigned in disgust, after the Secretary of State for Health had resigned in disgust, after more ministers resigned in a single day under Boris Johnson than had ever resigned under a single Prime Minister in the history of this country. So there will be no celebrations on this programme today, because this is not the beginning of the end. This is the end of the beginning. And what happens next is something that nobody knows. Many, many millions of people aren't ready yet to make the link between Boris Johnson and Brexit, to recognise that the inevitability of this inglorious collapse was written the moment he walked into Downing Street. Written the moment, in many ways, he decided to publish the column calling for a withdrawal from the European Union instead of the one that his genuine instincts led him to, which was the obvious sense and good sense of staying. But my God, spare me the mayor. Well, it's not even mea culpas, is it? Spare me the moral pontifications of people that put him there and until 2:10 yesterday were bending the knee in front of him. 24 hours it took for Nadhim Zahawi to say on national live television that he doesn't think Boris Johnson lies, that he thinks he tells the truth at all times, to sending a letter calling upon him to walk the plank. Let's not beat about the bush. Very, very clever politicking and tactical nous from Nadhim Zahawi, putting himself in the position of being the most powerful politician in government at precisely the moment that the leadership contest begins, as he probably knew it would. But there were moments yesterday when we were not sure. When the abject, crass, tragic self-regard of one man could have wreaked damage upon this country, the like of which we have never seen before. And that's what I mean by saying that we almost, I think, discovered what the British equivalent of January the 6th in America would have looked like. It would have looked very different. They're completely different countries, completely different political systems, completely different constitutions. One of them is written and one of them is not, as you know. But I don't know. If it wasn't for that unending avalanche of resignation and the fact that it started again this morning, I think that's probably even more crucial than what happened yesterday. The fact that it started again this morning, the fact that resignation letters were dropping on the Downing Street doormat before your shredded wheat had even been introduced to their morning milk. It was unsustainable. And it reached a point where even the most delusional and despicable man ever to hold public office in this country could no longer keep reality at bay. But my God, he tried. House of Commons yesterday, he meant it. Even when he stood before a select committee and accidentally revealed that he really did meet with a former KGB colonel hours after a NATO meeting and without his security detail. Something that Dominic Raab described as complete nonsense when asked a question by a Labour MP not long ago about precisely those facts which emerged yesterday. The chaos with which he deliberately operates. It's not like an accident or a price worth paying for the occasional brilliance. It's everything that he is corrupt and chaotic. Everything that he does is corrupt and chaotic. Everything he has ever been is corrupt and chaotic. So proper patriots, people who actually love this country, people who actually hate what has been and is being done to it, we don't get to celebrate today, I don't think. We don't even get to take 3 hours off, I don't think. Because the flames may have been extinguished. But the house is a burnt-out wreck.